So today I want to talk about property management, and in real estate, property management will make or break your real estate portfolio. You've probably heard me say it a lot if you've been watching my videos. If you have a good property manager and a bad deal, it can make it a good deal. If you have a good deal and a bad property manager, it can make it a bad deal. So, property managers make or break your deal, and unfortunately, 9 out of 10 property managers are bad. So it's once you find that 1 out of 10 that's good, you have to treat them well. You have to treat them like gold, and you have to be a type of real estate investor that attracts those good property managers. So it's a two-way street, right? You have to be also a good owner as well, and you have to be very communicative. So let me talk about first my experience with a bad property manager that I had, specifically for my mobile home park. And I can talk about what's going great with my property managers from my apartment complex that are obviously doing better, right? And you can kind of see that contrast based on my experience. So, like I said, I had a bad property manager for my value add 40 lot mobile home park. And I had two good property managers for my 26 unit in Oklahoma and my 20 unit in Oklahoma, right? So I have a pretty good view. And I've been working with these property managers for about a little under 3 years now. So, hopefully that makes me qualified to speak about this. So let's start with the bad property manager first, because that's the easiest to remember. So the bad property managers, what makes them bad is that what they say and what their actions are do not align. So let me give an example. Um, my property manager would like say, I would talk to them, meet with them weekly, even monthly, and just say, all right, like, what are we going to do to improve rents? Because collections were an issue in my mobile home park, right? We were only collecting at best 70% of the rents on a good month, and on like the holiday season, it'd be like 50%. So it was really terrible. So I had an offsite property manager and then an onsite property manager. So the onsite property manager, because it's a D-class apartment or mobile home park area, it's a D-class neighborhood. I'll do another video talking about D-class areas. I'm never going to invest in a D-class area again. But pretty much, to collect the rents in D-class markets, you have to be very tough. You have to be very assertive. You have to be very confrontational. So what does that mean? You have to like knock on the door every single day and collect the rent. Like, hey, rent's due on the first. If they don't pay, rent's due on the second. Rent's due on the third. Right? You have to continuously be aggressive, be confrontational. And I had a husband and a wife duel who lived in the mobile home park, and the husband was a softie. The wife was the bad cop who was aggressive, and the security guard that we had was aggressive. And when they were there, at best we would collect like 70% of the rents, but when they're, or like, maybe we can get up to like 90%. But when they're not there, that's when it dropped. And like I said, you have to be very aggressive, and it takes a certain personality to want to do that, right? So, so it was great when they were there, great. But when they were not there, so the wife got injured with a back issue, she couldn't walk, and the security guard was injured as well. So obviously, if I see my two rent collectors are gone, my rent collections went down. So I was talking to my offsite property manager saying, hey, the job of a property manager is to collect rents. If they are known for being a softie and they're known for not collecting rents, and the tenants know that they can get away with it, then they're not going to take them seriously. So I told my offsite property manager, I said, it's either going to be you guys. Ultimately, since you guys are managing this guy, you have to take responsibility, right? Because if he's not collecting rents well and you're not holding him accountable, then now I'm holding you accountable. But the downside was, um, you know, there was no account. They weren't, the offsite property manager wasn't holding the onsite manager accountable, because from their perspective, like, well, we fired this guy. It's hard to find a replacement. You have to train someone from all over again, and they may or may not be any better, right? And then same with the offsite property manager. It was hard for me to hold them accountable and saying, hey, like, you guys are terrible. It's not like I can replace them the next day. Like with apartments, I can replace them the next day. Mobile home park, it's harder to find offsite property management. So it's hard to find on-site property manager. It's hard to find off-site property manager. So because they all knew that, they're very mediocre, and that's what led me to sell. Like, basically they weren't able to collect rents. They weren't able to manage renovations fast enough. They communicated well, which is what they did great, but they just had no results. Like they just would like, there's two type of managers. They either calm the emotions or they solve the problem. I'm like, you should be able to do both, right? Like they could calm my emotions, but they didn't have any results. And I would tell them straight up, like, okay, great, you know how to say the right things, but you're not doing the right things. Like I don't see the results. And for me, the results is I want to see more money, better collections, right? Like I don't care what you tell me. I want to see the results in the data, right? Like, okay, you tell me you did something. If I don't see the rent collections going up, then you did nothing in my mind, right? Or if you tell me you did something, the rent collections went up, and I see it went from 70% to 90%, then you did something correct, right? So they just talked a lot, but they didn't. Their actions didn't like resolve with that. So that's what made me really frustrated with them, and made me decide to sell the property, and maybe decide not to invest in D-class neighborhoods and not to invest in mobile home parks anymore, right? Just not my cup of tea. So what made them bad? Number one is they said the right things, but their actions didn't align. Number two is they didn't hold the on-site property manager accountable, and number three is they themselves did not hold themselves accountable. Right, there was a low standard. Right, I even talked to the owner of the property management company, and they managed 70 parks, and even he like would just say one thing but didn't do anything. Right, like they just would say whatever bullshit to make me happy, and then once I not angry anymore, they just would continue doing the same thing. Right, so all they were good at was paying the bills and spewing some bullshit at me, right? And I told them this straight up. I'm like, you guys are just saying the same thing every month. There's no results. It sounds like a broken record. And I just said, you know what? I just want to sell. I just want to break clean of this. Let's move on, right? And that's what I did. So that was a bad property manager. On the contrast, a good property manager, so my 26 unit was great. And let me tell you why it's great. So they weren't as good with communication. I mean, they wouldn't communicate right away, but within like a day or two if I texted them, right? And what I found out was that weren't communicating as well because they were busy, renovating the property and dealing with the tenants, right? So they were busy because we were renovating my 26 unit and my 26 unit apartment complex. So obviously, like we have to, renovate these 5 units, coordinate the contractor, move tenants in, and then tenants will turn over, renovate the units, rinse and repeat, right? So they weren't the greatest communicators. But I look at the collections, I could see that okay, our rents were consistently at like 95% collections every month. Tenants would leave, and then we'd renovate these units, and the units would renovate pretty timely, right? And without much effort on my end. Like they would just tell me, Steven, this is how we recommend you renovate these units. This is how much rents you can get, and whatever they said, they hit. Like they said that okay, this unit's gonna cost $5,000 to renovate. It did cost around five, maybe a little bit. Maybe it cost $6,000 to renovate. Give them a little buffer, and they would say this would rent out for about 700. And it did rent out for 700, right? And then like when I would ask them for updates, they would give me updates. I'll be like, oh, how are the units? How are the renovations going? They would just be like, okay, units number 1, 3, and 6, they're almost done. Number 7 is fully renovated. We just did the final walkthrough. It's rent ready. We're advertising it, right? And then I would text them again or talk to them and say, hey, what's the update on the rentals? And they would just say that okay, these units are almost done renovating, and these units are already pre-leased, right? So I'd get constant updates, and they would know the property, right? And they would give me suggestions like, oh hey, like unit number 5 is complaining that they need a new fridge and a new fan, and I said, hey, let's just give them all that, give them new appliances, give them a new fan, do some minor renovations, but we can when their lease is up, we can raise the rents. So they would tell me like what to do. Like it was almost like I just needed to like give them the money and just approve it, and that's it, right? So that's all I really told them was just like, all right, like, and I would be like very reasonable with them. I'll be like, all right, um, is it reasonable that we could renovate 2 or 3 units a month and then rent those 2 or 3 units a month? And they just said that like honestly, we could probably do 5 units a month at our current pace. And I just said, okay, well let's just set the bar a little lower and make it 3. So, and they would always hit those deadlines, right? Like, I think one month we finished renovating like 7 units, and then we pre-leased out all 7, right? And like they were quiet, and then they would tell me like, oh hey, sorry, like Steven, we're busy, like we've been busy trying to show these units out. We pre-leased like 7. So like for me, I don't mind slightly slower communication if you actually have the results, and they have the results to show it. Like, hey, these are units that we're renovating. This is where they're at. We just need flooring. Once the flooring's done, I do my final punch out list. Do the final punch out list, and then we'll start advertising these units, and they hit the rent. So like whatever they said, it aligned, right? Like it should just flow very nicely. This is what we suggest. This is what it hits. This is what happened, right? So like, and if there's a delay, whatever. Like, sorry, we had a delay in flooring. They have to do this and this. That's why it's slower. So it made sense, right? Versus my other mobile home park manager, it would just be like, oh, sorry, this excuse, we forgot this excuse, just a bunch of excuses. But like for the other one, it was just like very matter of fact, right? It flowed very smoothly. Like I literally renovated like all 26 units, or majority of them. I think today, like they're probably at like 24 out of 26 are rented out consistently. Obviously there's turnover, but every time I talk to them, it's already leased. So like honestly, I just check the bank accounts, because I can see the rents collected, and I'm like, all right, roughly I know it's about 18,000 or 17,000 in rents, and every month I can log in and consistently see that we're collecting 16 to $17,000 in rents, right? And then my expenses are pretty consistent. So at this point, I really don't touch base as much, and this just kind of serves me as a reminder. Like I should probably touch base with them, text them, and see how everything's going, right? Because I want to make it known that I'm available, I'm there, right? But for the most part, because I've been working with them for 3 years, because they've earned my trust, they've earned the rapport, they earned my stress. I'm not as hands on, and they know that if anytime they have an issue with me, like maybe they need me to resolve something, I will resolve it timely, right? So we earn that relationship. But in the beginning, I might be more hands on. I might be following up a lot more often. And same thing for my 20 unit, right? Like my 20 unit, they helped me renovate 15 out of 20 units. They're able to lease these units out. They send me my reports every month automated, which is really nice. Like I just get an email notification at Folio that they uploaded the rent rolls, the P&L statements. I can text them for updates. It's easy, very seamless. And this is reminding me I need to text both my property managers because like it's so passive for me now. I forget to follow up. But for my 26 unit, they're not strong with the reports and seeing the P&L, but because I see the bank account, I can see the P&L essentially, right? I see how much money went in and how much money is going out for that month, right? You could do that on the banking app to see like, okay, this is my income, this is my expense. So in a weird way, that is my P&L. And I could easily just text them and just be like, hey, can you get me updated reports? Or hey, can I get a status update, right? So that's why I need to, after this, I'm actually going to text my property managers as a reminder, but they're so great that they earn that trust, right? Versus my shitty property manager from a mobile park, I would be on them constantly because they're so terrible, right? I need to be on them more. So great property managers should give you ideas. They should help make your life easier. They should give you suggestions on how to renovate. They should give you suggestions on what the rents are. They should tell you how to handle things. But obviously, you have to trust but verify, right? And then when they reach out to you, make sure you respond timely. So, versus the other property managers, they would forget a bunch of things, and like I constantly have to be on them and on them and on them. And I tell them like I don't want to be on you guys, but because you're not doing what I want, that's why I'm on you, right? So that's the difference between a good property manager versus a bad property manager. So if you are looking to buy your first apartment complex and you want to help vet your first property managers or interview property managers, I highly suggest that you join my mentorship and coaching program. That's what I help people do. Like I said, property managers make or break your deal. So check out the description down below, or you can send me an email. But in any case, let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. Please share this video with somebody who's going through property management screening right now. And I hope to see you in the next one. Remember, if you found value from this video and you want to learn more about real estate, please subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much.